So now we are talking about packing and storage of objects in museum. So we are again talking about different kinds of objects that you can find in our museums. And we will start with paintings. Paintings are usually stored without packing. We only pack paintings for movements or shipment. However, if you have a modern or a contemporary painting that is unframed because the painted edge are considered to be an integral part of the artwork, which can be seen while on display. In this case, before storage, you should protect your painting with a handling traveling storage frame, HTS frame, as you can see in the picture. This HTS frame will eliminate the possibility of contact with the painting's edge or surface during handling or when in storage. This is one way of storing paintings, this kind of cabinet. In this case, you have solid multi-purpose storage shelves. You have horizontal shelves that are used for storing fragile or damaging paintings, with, of course, paint side up, or unframed work. And to protect from physical forces, dust, dirt, and water, you can wrapping and selling the painting in polyethylene or mylar sheet. This will allow you to see the painting while is in storage. When in storage, always shut down your lights, so no light will be open when no one is in storage. Another way of storing paintings is sliding screens. They are very convenient because you can hang your paintings, and you can have lots of space. In a small space, you can have lots of painting at the same time, and it's easy to examine or to retrieve these paintings. The storage should be maintained at relative humidity between 40 and 60, with no more than 10% variance in a 24 hours period, and the temperature between 16 and 25, being 25 the highest temperature. Now we'll talk about packing and storage of furniture. So first we have to see what are the removable pieces. Wrap mobile parts like marble tops and drawers separately. Create pieces if they are fragile, if travel will be expensive, or if the piece will be handled by people. You can make crates padded with foams if necessary. This is storage of furniture, and as you can see, the furniture should be at least 10 or 50 centimeters above the ground. This is because of water leaks or that can occur because of also the water leaks. It is advisable to never placing furniture storage directly under water pipes or near windows. Chairs and small piece of furniture can be stored on a multi-level metal shelving, as we can see it here. Never pile the objects on top of another. Use dust covers to protect from dust, pollutants, and light. Although the storage should be with lights off when there is no one in the room. The relative humidity should be kept around 50 or plus or minus 5% and around 18 degrees. Now, talking about packing and storage of textiles. As we were talking about handling, large flat textiles should be rolled, not folded. And the ruled is the way textiles that are flat should be stored. So you can use Melinex, like you can see on the left side, to see exactly your textile, or you can use pre-washed cotton with tags to have labels to see what you have, since you can see, so if you know what you have inside that rolls. We can also use large metal cabinets and low profile acid-free cardboard board that also provide an excellent storage media for flat type textiles with minimal folding. Usually it's preferable do not layer items to minimize the crease and folds, but small or light, very light 2 or 3 dimensional textiles. Sometimes you can put it one on top of each other if they are interlaid with acid-free tissue. This is again the photo of the how to have in a box a small costume that are we can use pads and sausage of acid-free tissue to soften folds and to support the areas which as sleeves and shoulders, such as sleeves and shoulders. This is packing of a larger costume that is also using acid-free tissue to soften folds and to support the areas such as sleeves and shoulders to avoid them to fold. You can also use textile storage boxes on shelves, and these boxes are acid-free, and the temperature in the room should be around 14 or 15, and the relative humidity in the room should be between 40 and 50, and the temperature should be around 18. Sometimes we can hang costumes. We just have to be very careful to pad and cover the hanger to fit the costume and to spread the height of the costume onto the hanger. And this is possible by bending the hanger, the height of the costume very well spread for a large area, thereby reducing the load bearing stress on the shoulders, as you can see in the picture on your left side. You can also use clean previous washed cotton to cover or Tyvek to cover your costumes, and you can have labels that show exactly not only the number of the inventory, but exactly a photo of the costume that is covered. And now I will pass to my colleague.
I'm here.
Hi.
Okay, welcome again, Inês. So you can stop share, Filomena, please,
Yes.
so I can share from my side. And here we go again to photography, and I'll stop the video again so you can hear me better. So about photographic materials, how should we pack it and store it? So packing and storage of these kind of materials is essential to ensure its long-term preservation, and it's supposed to maintain its physical integrity, its chemical stability, and it should protect during handling, storage, and exhibition. So for this kind of materials, so for photography in general, we have standards that are recommended to choose and select the housing materials. So what are these ISO? These are the International Organization for Standardization. And these are the two ISOs that are recommended. So the first one is for imaging materials, albums, framing, and storage materials, and the second to processed imaging. So it's the photographic activity test for enclosure materials. So if you Google these ISOs, you will find the specifications of this type of materials that are recommended to select the storage materials. So these ISO specifications to enclosure materials for photography indicates that the material must be chemically and physically stable, so it should pass this PAT test. PAT is a photographic activity test. It's a kind of test that we can perform on photographic materials to understand what kind of photographic species we are talking about, and it's supposed to detect and or identify possible interactions between the materials that we have in our object and the materials that we are choosing to store it. So there should not be an interaction between these materials, meaning that the material we are choosing for storage should not start any chemical interaction with our photographic material. The construction of this type of enclosure must be strong and be made according to the object format. So never try to adapt the object to the box. It should be the other way around. So we should adapt the box to the object. The material surface must be smooth and non-abrasive. And these ISO specifications are also suitable and applicable for paper objects, so paper and photography together. So about paper and cardboard enclosures, these must have the following characteristics. These should or must have a high alpha cellulose content from rag, cotton, or chemically purified wood pulp, meaning that we are reducing the sulfur in these compositions. It should have an acid measure, so it should have a pH around 7 to 9.5. So we are talking about materials that should be neutral in terms of acidity. They should be neutral to less acid. So we are going to the basic region. So 9.5 is more basic. They should not have metallical particles in its composition, waxes or plasticizers or colorants. So they should not be colored because they are not chemically stable and they can release this color to our material. So as you see here in the image, everything is very white, or this is the natural color of the material. So about plastic enclosures. So sometimes we see photographies or even papers enclosed in this kind of plastic bags. The type of bags that we buy in the supermarket are not okay. So these are specific materials that we buy with conservation standards. So about how to choose them. So how do we know they are okay? So they must be inert and stable. So again, not react with our material. They should have the minimal plasticizer content. Plasticizer, it's something we add to the plastics. So it should not have them. The most recommended one is the polyester terephthalate composition, because it's the one that interacts the least. It's dimensionally stable, which is also important. It means it does not shrink with time or with different temperatures. And it's also rigid in the right amount. So in general, also polypropylene or polyethylene are suitable. So when looking for this kind of materials, use these references: polypropylene, polyethylene, or polystyrene. Okay. Which are the plastics completely forbidden for photographic materials? Cellulose nitrate, cellulose acetate, polyvinyl chloride. These are very, very unstable materials. They degrade a lot and they will release volatile organic compounds that will react with your photographies, with your photographic material. So commonly we have two levels of packing in photographies and photographic material. So first you have an individual enclosure, and after you have a box that you can fit different formats, as you see here. So you have individual cases and they can again fit in a bigger box. So how should we proceed for storage? So the storage furniture, cabinets and shelves should be made of non-combustible, non-corrosive materials. For instance, stainless steel, anodized aluminium, or steel with a powdered coated finish. So again, no wood. We should not use wood or wood byproducts because they contain substances like linen, peroxides, oils, and also a lot of acids that can be released and will start degradation mechanisms. So pay special attention when you select baked enamel shelving units for the storage room, because this can also have harmful chemicals that can be released from the painting. So be aware when you are buying furniture for your storage of the paintings and of the materials it has for finishing. What is very important, it's a demand, it's a high environmental stability. So again, as Philomena explained in the very beginning, what should not happen is fluctuations, again, of relative humidity, temperatures, okay? So it should be set and stable. We should not be storing anything, any material in attics or basements, because there is where the big fluctuations happened, and also because are the places where we tend not to go very often. So we do not tend to go to these places to monitor. It's important to block sources of UV or infrared radiation because it will cause harm. Avoid sources of heating, also very important. And we should have relative humidity and temperature measuring equipments to monitor what's happening. So when we think about sensitive materials like film-based negatives, as you've seen, are the ones that can be completely destroyed if not stored correctly. So they should be in the coolest part or cool dry storage. So they should not be stored in areas where you have high temperatures. So we move to paper and books. And for works on paper, the golden rule is the use of protective enclosures to preserve your works on paper. So paper should not be left without an enclosure. This is a way to increase a level of protection of the objects by mitigating the effects of physical handling, contaminants, light, and incorrect relative humidity. So use double or triple enclosures. The effectiveness of the enclosure obviously rely on the choosing and designing boxes. So you can consult this website to check a list of materials and how to build this type of boxes. This is something you can do by yourself. They explain very well how to build these enclosure boxes. It's not that difficult, really. So you should check on these because it's easy to find the correct materials and to do this kind of boxes that your object fits and you are not adapting anything. So packing. Protective enclosure materials, we are talking about folders, mats, boxes. They must be acid and linen free. We can buy them already with an alkaline buffer or neutral pH, meaning that you have no acid in your material. The use of the alkaline buffer storage material, they are beneficial because they neutralize the effect of acids that are inherent to works on paper. So paper will degrade by releasing acids, and if you have an alkaline buffered storage material, it will counteract this effect. Also, the film sleeves are a good option since they are stiff enough to adequately support the paper, and they have this PET film, so polyethylene. They are transparent, as we've seen, they are plastic, and you can see what's inside. So it's the big the big plus on these materials. So Continue on packing, we have some particular cases such as acid paper, so paper that already went through some degradation, it's already acid, so they should be separate and isolated from the rest of the collection. Otherwise, they will release their acids to the other papers, so they should be in isolation, should be separated from the others. Concerning oversized paper, objects like big maps, big paintings on paper, these should be stored flat on horizontal cabinets or shelves, and they should have sufficient space to be safely removed from drawers or shelves without damaging the paper. So for additional protection from damage to handling, the objects may be framed. If so, select good quality materials that can reduce fluctuations of temperature and relative humidity, and also that prevents the intrusion of dust or airborne particles. So besides these options, encapsulation may or not may be an option. It's appropriate for some paper objects since it allows the object to be viewed without removing or handling it. However, we should pay attention because we can be creating a microenvironment. So this should be evaluated. So here we see on storage, these big drawers to put the works on paper. So for storage, we should, and I say we should, my colleagues say we must avoid attics, basements, and other locations that have high risk of leaks and environmental extremes, which is true. And also we don't go there often, so we don't monitor. Whenever possible, we should invest in environmental conditions and implement a low temperature in the storage area. So, and relatively dry humidity. So below 50%, okay? It should have an average of 35% relative humidity. So it's quite dry. The exposure to all kinds of lights should be minimal. And if there is this option, use filters to your lights to reduce the wavelengths that pass from those lights. And you should have rules to go to the storage room. So that goes from turning off the lights in storage areas when the areas are not in use, to block lights from windows with blinds or drapes in the working areas. In areas where paper artifacts are exposed to light, the ultraviolet component should not exceed 75 microwatts per lumen. Still in storage, similar to what was said before, radiators and vents must be avoided. For the safeguard of the collections, a regular inspection, dusting and housekeeping plan must be implemented. Concerning books, if possible, organize and store them by similar size so that the face of the covers are maximally supported by the neighbors on each side, as we see here. You see all the books have the same size and they are even separated by cardboard cap enclosures. So, but they are all the same size to support each other and not mark the covers. So concerning paper objects, store oversized paper objects flat in folders, as we see before, either in metal horizontal cabinets or wide metal shelves. And we move to inorganics again. So we go again to glass and ceramics. And how should we pack glass and ceramics? So when having ceramic objects in storage, avoid closed boxes. So we have seen for photographies and paper that we have them well enclosed and well closed. So here is the opposite. We should avoid having them closed because it causes and creates microclimates and it makes it more difficult to monitor. So the best solution is to have open shelves with padded surfaces and lateral protection bars. This is possible when a protection against robbery can be ensured. So if you have a storage that is completely secure, you can have these, so open shelves, and the objects are easily grabbed. Otherwise, if you think you cannot safely have a protection against robbery, it can be dangerous to have the objects in open shelves. So this is something you have to wait. So large objects like glass and ceramic sculptures should be placed on the lower shelves or on a platform on the floor, never directly on the floor. Small ceramic objects like beads or archaeological fragments can be stored in drawer units for conservation. Drawers must be linear to receive the object, so you don't place it directly on the metal. For all cases, we should have a moderate temperature and a strict relative humidity. So it should be below 45%. Also very important, a good ventilation and a good monitoring plan. So when packing to transport, the golden rule is to never try to adapt the object to the package box again. You first wrap the object in acid-free tissue paper and then place it in a box that has in its interior a previously cut out foam that has the shape of the object. So a second layer should be placed to prevent the object from moving during transport. Always mark the box in the correct position, this is very important, and give instructions to unpack. How is the object placed inside and how should we unpack it? The cut foam, so if you have foam cutted to pad the object, it must be identified. So we know where to remove the foam and how to lift the object. If bubble wrap is the only option, do not put the bubble wrap in direct contact with the object because these bubble wraps release volatile organic compounds that can stain your objects, okay? So what about metals? Again, avoid closed boxes because they can cause microclimates and it's again very difficult to monitor. The open shelves with padded surfaces are a very good option, but again, pay attention if you can have a safety against robbery. And then if possible, have a polyester cover to prevent dust from accumulating. So you place a sheet of polyester to prevent dust. So larger objects like sculptures should be again placed on the lower shelves. We see here something different because we have the drawers on the bottom and but these objects are not very, very large, so they are still small. And as you see, the drawers are lined, so they have a background. And the objects should be placed inside, when possible, polyethylene bags. And metal objects require a very, very low level of relative humidity. If it would be possible, the ideal relative humidity would be 0%, but we cannot have that. So we have the lower relative humidity possible. So below 30% if possible. It's actually really, really dry and it should have a good ventilation. Sorry. I think I'm missing here a slide, but it's okay. So we can move on to stone. When we have here, packing. When we have stone objects in storage, again, we should avoid closed boxes. What we see here, it's a preparation for traveling. That's why the sculpture is being put inside a box. Again, closed boxes are very difficult to monitor and they create microclimates on the inside. So again, open shelves are the best option. But be sure that no one can enter and steal your objects. Small objects can be placed, as we have seen before, in drawers or smaller shelves. So something that we should have in mind when we have stones. Sometimes we think about stone as this sculpture here, and it's a marble one, but some stones might be radioactive. So this type of stones and crystals must be properly isolated. So if you have doubts about your stone collection, if you have a stone collection and you have doubts about it, you should contact the stone conservation if you think you have a radioactive stone in your collection. And this should be properly isolated because it's really dangerous. So in general, a moderate temperature and a strict relative humidity should be maintained, again, between 40 and 50%. Some objects might need a different condition. So stone is a little bit tricky. And if you think you have special cases in your collection, please do contact a stone conservator to ask for some help. Do not forget, always a good ventilation is very, very important. Okay. To store it, as you see, we have in this collection very big and heavy objects. So the majority are placed on the ground with a structure, so never directly on the ground. And small objects, as we see, it's as we have discussed, they can be placed inside drawers. So this is